The morning they called the cops on my grandpa, something in me snapped so clean I could hear the break. Dawn sat low over the lake, the mist hanging like a quiet prayer. You could hear every small thing, the bobber kissing the surface, a blue heron shifting in the reeds, the soft clink of Grandpa's thermos cap. I was pouring coffee black. Hot. A little burnt when a golf cart with a blinking amber light crept down our gravel path like a raccoon with an attitude. "Sir," the woman in the yellow vest called, voice crisp as a cold fry. "This is a private HOA lake. You can't fish here." Grandpa didn't even turn. He felt the bobber twitch, gave the line a whisper of a tug, and smiled into the fog. "Been fishing this water since I could walk," he said. "It knows my name." Behind her, two boys in polo shirts clutched clipboards like shields. And there she was, the HOA president. Mrs. Hammonhair sprayed hard enough to stop a storm, lips set to permanent disapproval. She had the smile of someone who liked winning arguments more than she liked people. "Private lake," she repeated, louder now as if volume made it true. "Association members only. You're trespassing. If you don't leave, we'll call the sheriff." I set the cup down and stood. "Ma'am, this shoreline is our family's property. That dock? My granddad built it before most of your houses existed. The water rights are recorded at the county. We're not arguing. We're fishing." She snorted. "We'll see about that." She thumbed a radio, said something clipped and official sounding. And the boys scribbled like they were writing the Constitution. The amber light strobed across a pale pink sky. Across the lake, an American flag lifted, then sagged, like it was tired of being patient. Grandpa's line dove. "Hush," he said, setting the hook. The rod bowed, the line sang, and for a few breaths, we were nothing but the dance between a man and his lake. He worked the fish with the patience of a lifetime give, take breathing when the base flashed silver green. I slid the net under like we'd practiced since I was little. Thump on the dock. The boys jumped. Mrs. Hammond rolled her eyes. "That's it," she said, pleased with herself. "I'm calling the sheriff." Sirens don't always scream. In a small county like ours, they arrive as a distant yelp that fades into the crunch of tires on gravel and a door closing like a hand on a Bible. Deputy Alvarez stepped out, calm as Sunday morning. He looked at the golf cart, the vests, the clipboards, my grandpa in his old ball cap with the sweat ring, and the base flipping its last argument. "Morning," he said. "We got a call about a trespass." Before I could speak, Mrs. Hammond marched forward, heels wobbling, and unloaded the whole speech. Private lake, rules, fines, towing, more rules, more fines. When she finally came up for air, Alvarez turned to Grandpa. "You got ID, sir?" Grandpa reached into his tackle box and pulled out a folded paper sleeve, creased 1,000 times and wrapped in a tired rubber band. He handed the deputy the top page crisp, a little yellowed, official like only a county stamp can be. "Didi," he said. "Ijolil Ba conveyance. Shoreline to the oak and around the cove. Bottomland and riparian rights retained by the grantor and his heirs. That'd be me, him," he nodded at me, "and anyone we bring to fish at daybreak." Mrs. Hammond laughed, a sound with splinters in it. "Adorable," she said. "We have covenants." Covenants beat. That, Alvarez didn't laugh. He tipped the paper to the light, stepped aside to cut the glare, then keyed his shoulder mic. "Dispatch patched me to the recorder. Ask for Linda. Checkbook 102, page 44 riparian rights. On Elm Valley Lake, North Cove." He paused. "I'll hold." We waited. The lake settled, as lakes do when people forget themselves. The heron lifted its legs like a slow dancer and stared at us, like we were the only ugly thing in a beautiful morning. I could smell damp wood and coffee. My jaw ached from holding still. Mrs. Hammond leaned in, voice low now, conspiratorial. "Here's what matters. The board has authority. You fish here, you pay a fine. Do it again, we escalate. We can put a lien on your house. We can make your life very uncomfortable.
Ow.
Grandpa never looked up. We paid for this shoreline with money, he said, and we paid for this lake with sweat. You don't put a lien on that. He sipped his coffee without spilling a drop. The radio crackled. Alvarez got Linda on, dispatch said. He keyed again. Book 102, page 44 recorded. 1968, amended 1982, Linda Reed. Grantor retains riparian rights to the water and bottom of the North Cove, including ingress-egress by dock. Later, Doak hold on 2003 shared water agreement. Any attempt by subsequent owners or associations to restrict? Grantor's access triggers stipulated damages of $3 million even, indexed to CPI. Executed and recorded. Silence. Even the bass in the net stopped flopping like it wanted to eavesdrop. The clipboard twins forgot to breathe. Alvarez turned to Mrs. Hammond, almost apologetic. Ma'am, I think you're going to want to call your counsel. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. That can't be right, she said, but it sounded like a question. Alvarez looked at Grandpa. Sir, you got a copy of that 2003 document? Grandpa handed over the second page, the one with the notary seal that bit the paper and never let go. Alvarez read the paragraph twice, checked the signatures, the developer, the county, and my granddad's neat hand that looked like fence posts across a pasture. He keyed the mic. Dispatch. Clear the call, no trespass. Advise caller that any further action is civil. I'll submit a supplemental with copies. He clipped the mic back. Y'all have a nice morning. Took 5 minutes less. If you only count from the words, 3 million. In 5 minutes, the HOA went from puffed up to punctured. Our quiet family morning turned into justice, with a number on it printed, signed, and recorded 22 years ago by people who expected their promise to outlive them. Mrs. Hammond swallowed hard. This isn't over, she said, but it sounded like a wish more than a threat. I slid the base back into the green. It flicked once and vanished. No, I said, watching the ripples smooth out. It's just beginning. Behind us, the flag caught a breath and lifted. Grandpa poured more coffee. The lake exhaled. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the simple peace of a man standing exactly where he belongs. Grandpa says a promise isn't a promise unless you can fold it and put it in your pocket. That's why he carries the deed like a love letter, erber-banded, soft at the edges, tucked beside hooks and sinkers. When I was a kid, we'd sit on the dock at sunset, and he'd tell me how my great-grandfather dammed the creek with neighbors and a mule. How the county helped turn a farm pond into a small blue mirror big enough to hold the sky. We never owned the sky, he'd say, but we took care of the piece the lake borrowed. Then the subdivision came. Developers drew straight lines through crooked lives. Porchlight dreams with granite counters. The HOA arrived like a well-meaning aunt who critiques your haircut and then takes your dog. They bought the South and West Shore. The East stayed county. The North hour slice stayed ours, bent like a thumb pressed into the water. To his credit, the developer was savvy. He wanted to sell lake access, but he came to my granddad with coffee and respect. They put it on paper. The 2003 shared water agreement recognized what the 1968 deed and the 1982 consent decree already said. The bottom of the North Cove and the water above it belonged to the grantor and heirs. The HOA could keep up their ramp, and even stock fish butt. They could never keep us from our dock at dawn. Then came the clause the developer added, the one folks call unusual, till they need it. If anyone later tried to block or punish our access, stipulated damages of $3 million indexed to inflation, payable within 30 days of written notice or a documented law enforcement denial, shall, not may. Men used to write like that clean. Final dot, time moved. Petunias at the entrance. Speed bumps. Mail slot rules. Muddy pickup fines. None of that was my fight. I kept my fences tight, paid my taxes, answered the volunteer fire siren. When it wailed at 2 a.m., Grandpa fished. New board members showed up young. Organized, convinced civilization lives or dies on the shade of shutters. They were polite at the farmer's market. They bought honey. They petted our dog. Power, though, is a strange spice too much, and the stew goes bitter. Someone found an old master map that showed the lake in blue with a thick outline. It was meant as a highlight. They read it like a fence. Why didn't you tell me about the clause? My wife asked that night while I spread papers on the kitchen table like a winning hand. I figured we'd never need it. I said, and I meant it, I want to wave from the mailbox and talk deer and weather. I don't want to be the guy with the folder. She works at the county. She knows how land behaves on paper. She tapped the paragraph with a fingernail. You're not suing anybody, she said. You're holding folks to their promises. By the time the griddle was hot and the kitchen smelled like Sunday, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I put it on speaker. This is counsel for the Elm Valley Lake HOA, calm baritone said. And then the familiar dance started misunderstandings. Harmony, resolve this amicably, no litigation. I let him glide. When he stopped, I told him we were happy to be amicable and just as happy to be clear. The documents are recorded, I said. The deputy logged an incident number, which satisfies the notice in the agreement. We'll send scans. You can pull certified copies. We're not threatening anyone. We're confirming terms your client already agreed to, including the payment schedule triggered by attempted restriction. Silence, keyboard, mouse click. A low HM. I see it, he said at last, more honest than I expected. Unusual, but there. Unusual, Grandpa muttered. Flipping a pancake is telling a man he can't fish his own water. Sir, the lawyer said. Respectful, we'll advise our client to cease further enforcement immediately. We may request a meeting to discuss settlement. That's fine, I said. We'll bring coffee. And the papers. That won't be necessary, he said, softer now. We can print them from the county's site. After we hung up, I started a list because when a fight becomes a process, a list keeps you honest. Certified notice with deed, 1982, consent decree. 2003 agreement. Correct the signs at the entrance's real boundaries. Real words. Written pledge. No member harasses guests at our dock when invited. Public apology to Grandpa. At the next general meeting, not legalese. Human. Grandpa poured syrup like it was an offering. You really think they'll pay? He asked, not greedy, just weatherwise. They'll read the word shall, I said. Their insurance company will too. That afternoon I walked the north fence, past the boundary oak, down to the cove where water slicks against roots. I pressed my palm to the dock boards, still warm from morning sun. Thank you, I whispered to my great-grandfather who signed straight. To Grandpa who kept the paper safe, to the deputy who kept his head, to the lawyer who told the truth out loud across the lake. A cluster of neighbors watched like we were a show. I don't blame them. Most folks don't know who owns what. They just want to fish, grill, wave, sleep at night. I raised a hand. A kid waved back before his mom tugged him into the shade, like truth might sunburn. The sky slid toward Denham. The heron moved 3 inches and called it a good day. My phone buzzed, again a text from council. Board has called special session. Recommend no further conversation until meeting. We'll be in touch tomorrow, I typed. We'll be here. We've been here, then. I sat on the dock that holds our family like a spine. Let my boots hang over what is ours because we promised to care for it and listen to the lake say my name back to me. The clubhouse smelled like lemon cleaner and bad decisions. Wednesday night. Folding chairs. An American flag and an HOA banner with a leaf that wanted to be a tree when it grew up. People fanned agendas and whispered, "You could have spread butter with the tension." Grandpa wore his good hat. I wore my cleanest work shirt. I wasn't pretending to be anyone but the man who fixes fence, pays taxes, and likes a quiet sunrise. My wife carried a binder document sleeved in tab knot because the law needed convincing, but because courage sometimes looks like turning a page and seeing your rights in 12-point font. Mrs. Hammond rapped the gavel a little too hard. Minutes approved. Old business. Pool filter. A non-compliant taupe mailbox. Then, new business North Cove access incident. Counsel stood. Good suit, quiet shoes, expensive eyes. Members, he said, the board has received guidance regarding the shared water agreement of 2003, entered by the developer and the grantor family. It is binding on successors and assigns. It recognizes certain riparian rights in favor of the grantor and includes stipulated damages in the event of attempted restriction. An incident report filed by the sheriff's office appears to satisfy the notice requirement. As such, the association is obligated to remit payment of $3 million, adjusted by CPI, within 30 days. The room tilted. A ball cap muttered. A chair squeaked like a small animal learning a hard truth. The association's D&O carrier has been notified, counsel continued. We anticipate coverage for a significant portion. Any balance will be addressed through reserves and, if necessary, a special assessment subject to member vote. He turned to us. The grantor is open to non-monetary terms as part of a global resolution. Dode. No speech truth is enough. I'm not here to gloat, I said. I'm here because a promise is a promise. My grandpa fished that cove before most of these roofs were shingles. Your developer knew it and signed to protect it. So did the county. People forgot. That happens. We're not here to ruin anyone. We're here to make sure it doesn't happen again. I set the binder down. We want 4 things. 1. Fix the entrance signs, lake access for members per covenants. North Cove shoreline and riparian rights, privately held respect posted boundaries. 2. Send a letter telling the truth and instructing members not to confront anyone on our dock when invited. Questions go to the board, not to my grandpa at sunrise. 3. A public apology to him at the next general meeting, human, not legal. My kids were there. I don't want them thinking loud equals right. 4. Because we're neighbors and this lake is part of all our stories. We want 10% of the settlement paid into a scholarship in my grandpa's name at the high school for water management, conservation, or trades. For people who take care of places like this. The room changed shape. The man who mows in perfect diagonals nodded like he'd just remembered how. A woman dabbed her eyes. Mrs. Hammond looked smaller, the size people are. When anger leaves and all that's left is a person who made a mistake, she lifted the mic. It squealed. I apologize, she said, and the words sounded new. Mr. Walker, we were wrong. I was wrong. I should have listened. Grandpa stood hat in hand and gave a small Sunday morning bow. Thank you, he said. I accept. They voted to settle, fix the signs, send the letter. Counsel texted the wind to someone off stage like a firefighter rolling hose after the flames are out. Folks lined up to shake our hands. A dock builder offered free boards. I told him I'd pay fair. He smiled like that was the right answer. A teenager asked if he could fish our cove with his grandpa. Bring him, I said. Quiet mornings. No radios. Outside, the air felt like a lake after a storm scrubbed. A little raw, honest. The flag stirred just enough to prove the wind still had work to do. The money came in stages insurance first. Then a cashier's check from the HOA with a memo line that read, Settlement per 2003 agreement. We did boring, beautiful things with it. Paid off the farm, fixed fences, re-roofed the barn that leaks when rain blows sideways, and endowed the scholarship so it'll outlive all of us. I bought Grandpa the fancy rod he always admired but never allowed himself to own. He cradled it like a newborn. This thing can cast to next Wednesday, he said. We didn't buy a motorboat. We kept the rowboat because it creaks like the dough-cold boards telling stories when you step on them. We didn't throw a party. We went fishing the first morning after the final transfer cleared. We were on the water before the sun knew what to do with itself. Coffee, quiet, the holy smell of wet wood. Across the lane, new entrance signs told the truth. People walked dogs and waved. No golf carts. No clipboards. Just the small sounds of a world minding its business. Feel different? I asked. Grandpa took his time. I feel like the lake, he said. Calm on top. Deep underneath. And if anybody throws rocks, I know how to smooth them out. We laughed. A bass dimpled the surface. Ripples spread like the future, deciding to be gentle. I thought about how it all turned on paper men who chose shallow vermeil, a deputy who made one careful call, a clerk who loved her job, a lawyer who told the truth, neighbors who found humility. Mostly, I thought about names my great-grandfather's on the deed. Grandpa's careful signature, mine printed beneath. That's how legacies move. Down the page, down the years, dock to rowboat, hand to hand. The lake held us like a promise you can fold and keep. Let it sit, Grandpa said as my bobber wobbled. Patience makes better stories. He's right, so I'll finish playing. The HOA learned. They stopped fighting mailboxes, fixed the pool filter without drama, hired a manager who smiles with her eyes. Every spring, a kid who cares about water or work gets a scholarship in Grandpa's name. And a parent shakes our hands with a gratitude money can't buy. A place is more than dirt and water. It's the promises you keep there. Keep them long enough, and when folks forget, you can remind them not with shouting, but with paper and patience. That's not vengeance. That's stewardship. It feels like peace. The lake was calm again. And for the first time in years, so was I ever wrangled with an HOA or a neighbor who forgot the line between rules and respect. Tell me your story in the comments. I read every one. And if you believe some fights are worth showing up for quiet, steady, and honest, hit subscribe. Let's stand up together.